our economy, this is one of the reasons that our economy is in such bad shape, and for what? And we barely even talk about Iraq now. I mean, it's a positive thing that one of the things that Barack Obama did was to remove most of our troops from Iraq, but we have yet to have a real accounting for who took us into that war, why, what happened there, what do we owe the Iraqi people, and unfortunately, I don't see that conversation happening. In the meantime, Barack Obama said that was the bad war, but there was a good war. And the, quote, good war was Afghanistan, sending in more troops there. And then look, after 10 years, still there after 10 years, a situation that we have poured billions and billions and billions of dollars in, and the Afghan people continue to be among the poorest in the world. And the reputation of the United States, disastrous when you look at the incident after incident after incident, including the latest pictures that came out in the LA Times showing the terrible abuse of Afghans. And one of the positive things is that the American people have turned against this war in a big way. And in fact, we see from the latest polls that were done that showed that after 10 years, it's now up to 79% of the American people opposed to the war, and 69% in another poll said that the Afghan war is not worth fighting. And what's particularly interesting about that, I find, is two things. One, you know, when you're in the midst of a war and your soldiers are there, to admit that it's not worth fighting is something important. And the other is that for the first time, the majority of Republicans have come out and said this war is not worth fighting. So let's hope that we can, in our movement building, reach out to those Republicans and the libertarians who have been so excited by Ron Paul's campaign. We might not like what he says about some social issues, but certainly in terms of the foreign policy issues, calling for the troops to get out of Afghanistan, that we should be putting pressure on this administration to get out sooner than the end of 2014. Because remember, there's a lot of pressure on him already to stay longer. And that pressure comes from conservatives in Congress. It is coming now from the Republican campaign, including Mitt Romney himself, saying that we shouldn't put a timeline. And the latest, I don't know if any of you saw, the latest that just came out today with the Russians saying that we shouldn't put a timeline on. And some are speculating maybe they want to see the same thing happen to them, whereas we deplete all our resources. But we do think it's positive that the majority of Republicans now think the war is not worth fighting. But I find it paradoxical almost, because a similar poll came out about the same time, and we're talking about March and April, that looked at what I consider part of that same war, which is the use of drone warfare. And especially if you look at the spillover from the Afghan war into Pakistan, the CIA-run drone program is based in Pakistan. And the poll that was asked, it asked if people thought that was okay to kill terrorist suspects with drone attacks. So not even in any way we know that they are terrorists, just suspects. 83% of the population said that that was just fine. 79% of those said it was just fine to kill Americans overseas with drone attacks. And the really sad part of this is that it included a majority of Democrats and included a majority of people who call themselves liberal Democrats. So I think this work now on drone warfare is so critical because we have a lot of educating work to do about why this kind of killing by remote control is so dangerous. And let me just take a bracket here to explain for those of you who might not know how it works, what the remote control killing is all about. These are unmanned aerial vehicles, also known as UAVs. The slang term for them is drones. And they are used as airplanes without pilots. There's no pilot in the cockpit. There is a pilot, but the pilot is sitting on the ground in a room before a remote control. And these pilots can be, and are in fact, thousands of miles away from the battlefield. And so you have, in the case of like Afghanistan and Pakistan, you have pilots that are sitting in places like Creech Air Force Base outside of Las Vegas in Nevada. I'm on my way tomorrow to Hancock Air Force Base in upstate New York. You have outside of here in this area in Langley, Virginia, where the CIA has its pilots, and they are piloting these aircraft that are in places like Pakistan and deciding who to kill. And they don't even admit that this program exists, because it's the CIA, it's a secret organization, and because of national security issues, we don't even have the right to publicly acknowledge that this program exists. The CIA says it's not killing civilians, just tells you. Well, first of all, it doesn't even have a program, so how could it be killing civilians? And if it was killing anybody, they are all militants. And post facto, anybody that is killed, they say, was a militant. Well, you know, how do you know that? And the estimates that groups that have been tracking this say is that over 3,000 people have been killed in Pakistan alone since 2004 when they started using these drones. Some 800 of those are civilians, and of those, 175 of them were children. Now, we have a friend in Pakistan who's a lawyer who has been advocating on behalf of the drone victims. And he says the numbers are way higher than that because most of the people who are labeled militants are not militants. In that part of Pakistan, in the northern part, the men carry guns as a matter of course, and they might be sympathetic to the Taliban, but that does not mean they're actually involved in any kind of fighting, and certainly not involved in any kind of fighting that is targeted at American citizens, which should be is the justification for going after them, is that they're an imminent threat to us in this country. And I wanted to read you just a couple of short excerpts from this book that describe a little bit, give a little bit of sense of the victims. This was in Pakistan. The Khan family never heard it. They had been sleeping for an hour when a hellfire missile pierced their mud hut. Black smoke and dust choked the villagers as they dug through the rubble. 4-year-old Zirak's legs were severed. His sister Maria, 3, was badly scorched. Both were dead. When their cousin Irfan, 16, saw them, he gently curled them into his arms, squeezed the rumpled bodies to his chest, lightly kissed their faces, and slid into a stupor. There is a man, a photographer, who has been risking his life to go to the site of the drone attacks to try to document them. And here's a little piece from him. There are just pieces of flesh lying around after a strike. You can't find bodies. So the locals pick up the flesh and they curse America. They say that America is killing us inside our own country, inside our own homes, and only because we are Muslims. That is the perception in places like Pakistan. The other amazing thing to me is that think of how the US goes around the world supposedly promoting democracy. Well, in the case of Pakistan, there is a democratically elected government. The head of state there has been saying, please stop the drone attacks. And the legislature has twice voted, one in 2008 and one just a few weeks ago, unanimously calling for an end to the drone strikes. Because they know how unpopular the strikes are, how they're killing civilians, how they're creating chaos in that part of the country. And they know that it's counterproductive, that it is not putting an end to any elements of Al-Qaeda that are there, Taliban who are there. It is just creating more enemies every time we strike. But the United States refuses to listen to the democratically elected government of Pakistan and says, we really don't care. We're going to continue these drone strikes anyway. So that is a CIA program. The military also has its drones. In fact, the military has a massive amount of drones. When you look back at the year 2000, the military had maybe 50 drones. Now they have about 7,500. Most of these are small drones, and they have everything now from a drone the size of an insect or a hummingbird to a drone that can go in the pack of a soldier that he can launch, to what's called the Reaper and Predator drones that carry the Hellfire missiles, or big drones that are the size of a commercial aircraft, like the Global Hawk, that are used for surveillance. So the military has its program continuing to use these in places like Pakistan, but also in places other places we are not at war with, like Yemen. Well, the CIA and the military, the Joint Special Operations Command, are working together in Yemen. But the CIA feels that it has been constrained because it has only been allowed to go after individuals that have been identified on their hit list. But it says, wait, in Pakistan we have two ways of doing this. We go after people that are on a hit list whose names we know, but then we also have a kind of strike that's all based on suspicious activity. So we don't know who they are, but if they look suspicious, we can kill them. We want that same permission to be able to do that in Yemen. And this was the front page story in the Washington Post yesterday, saying broader drone tactics sought, CIA aims to expand the strikes in Yemen. And goes on to say that already in the last couple of months, there has been a tremendous increase in the drone strikes in Yemen, but other people are extremely worried about this. They say the same thing as in Pakistan. This is causing a backlash, people are taking it out on the government, and it's actually bringing local people who are anti-government together with the small elements of Al-Qaeda who are in Yemen and making them see that they have some kind of common cause.